The Paragon team at Epic Games have been releasing a fantastic video series called Community Corner. In this series, they talk about relevant topics and kind of address community concerns and kind of discuss those. I want to do a video on their latest one, hero abilities and their kit designs, because it just addresses a few key things and really helped me understand what the whole thing is about. I want to kind of condense this, make it put it in a way that hopefully is easy to understand so that everybody can learn from this fantastic content. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Paragon Guide. I am Sylphin. In the background here you're going to see a montage of some pretty good plays with Revenant. I do really well with him. Not sure why. He's awesome. So, in this latest video about hero abilities and designing their kits, they talk about some really good things. First off, they talk about how there's two types of skill in Paragon. On one hand, there's the execution mastery. Kind of makes sense. You can land, like, can you land that ability? Can you land the shot? Can you time something right? Can you land the Murdoch snipe, for example? That one kind of makes sense because can you execute? Now, there's another kind of skill, and that's kind of like the MOBA or positional skill. This is, do you know proper team comp? Can you make a proper team comp? Do you know match timings? Do you know lane rolls? Can you be, or positional mastery, can you be literally in the right spot, right? Can you rotate in time to save your tower, etc., etc.? That kind of MOBA or positional mastery skill knowledge sort of a thing. Those are the two skills that kind of define the gameplay behind Paragon and its heroes. Now, some heroes, all heroes, should be either or a blend. They should be either or a blend. Now, it should be this way because roles are different, supports play very different than carries, for example, just inherently, and require diversity. You don't want all roles and all heroes to play the same. Now, there's another reason in that people want different things. I just naturally gravitate to supports, and some people are going to naturally gravitate to carries or to tanks, stuff like that, and that is fine. That is good. We want that. So some heroes should kind of be focused on either skill or be a blend of skill, which most heroes are. They have a component of each. Now, we have to design heroes to meet the focus of their kit, or their kit should serve the focus of the hero. The kit should serve, the focus of the hero. Now, if you make the focus entirely on positional mastery, being in the right place on the right time, knowing good MOBA strategy, then if you can execute that part, then the kit of the hero should complement that execution. Or that kit should be easy to execute because you've already executed the main focus, which is being in the right place on the right time, or just knowing MOBA strategy, right? Does that make sense? Conversely, if it takes no positional or MOBA skill to use that ability or this hero's kit, something like Murdoch Snipe, for example, you can be anywhere on the map, it doesn't matter where you are, then it should require lots of skill to execute, right? Because Murdoch can be anywhere, all he has to do is look across the map, somebody's low, and then it takes skill to land that shot. Can you imagine if Murdoch Snipe was a locked-on ability? Right? Point made. Now, Paragon, though, and this is something that people forget frequently, and I think we undervalued and we kind of take for granted, is that Paragon is unique in that, especially for ranged heroes, there is already a component of executional mastery that has to, in order to not make being successful impossible, take away from the rest of the hero's complexity. If you're a ranger and all of your ability and you have to make a slow projectile hit your enemy targets +5 skill shots, it's going to be impossible because we have a special component in Paragon. That is the 3D over the shoulder nature. We have an added level of complexity that no other MOBA has, and I think we take that for granted. So, some examples here that of this thing that we're trying to talk about. Morigesh, for example, is all about positional mastery. She's all about positional mastery, and she was made to be a relatively easy hero. Now, if she can get into position, okay, then she should do well. That is the whole point of Morigesh. If you can get up close and personal with your enemy, you should do well. Therefore, she should have easy to use abilities, while still though being vulnerable positionally. If she has to get close to you, and then she'll do well, but then she still has to be weak. And you know what? They tuned her back. They removed some health. I think they removed some armor. They tuned her back. Yes, she was overpowered when she was released, but that is okay. They will make mistakes. Tuning will happen, and that is okay. So that is an example. She's all about positional mastery. If she can get in the right position, then she should succeed. May therefore make that easy kit viable. Now, another example is Decker's stun. Decker's stun doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to happen in the sense that it's a locked on ability, right? Due to the rest of her kit being fairly strong and the range of the ability, right? It can go so far, it can be lobbed over obstacles. It doesn't also need to be locked on, right? That would be very overpowered. So you get a very long range lobbed ability at the expense of it not being locked on. That is fair in keeping with Decker's design and skill cap. But somebody like Chimera's stun on his ultimate needs to happen. It just straight up needs to happen because he's an assassin and balancing. If you guys remember back on Legacy, his ult would not stun, and it was pretty broken. It wouldn't hit. It would hit. It would kind of stun people. It wouldn't. Like it was just completely. It wasn't completely broken, but it didn't serve its core focus. So it needs that stun. Now, Revenant. The whole reason I think that they released this video was because people are saying that the lockdown abilities for Revenant is a trend that's kind of worrisome. Now, his focus is on isolation and duels. That's what Revenant's all about. Isolation and duels. If he can isolate a target, he does fantastic. But he can force a duel with his ultimate or just get a duel and do well. That's his thing. Isolation and duels, he will do well in. Now, positional mastery will be key for your Scar and Obliterate. If you don't have your target isolated, your Scar will be wasted because your Obliterate will go on multiple targets, right? Yes, you can rely on your executional mastery to still proc the Scar, but that's different. Now, his ult, though, removes the temporary need for positional mastery because that's his ultimate. That's kind of his whole focus, right? A duel. If you can just not use his ultimate and isolate the target, great. But because he's also a duelist and he's kind of this, in keeping with his theme, he can force that, and that's his thing. He's a great duelist. Now, due to the requirement of positional mastery or the use of his ult, okay, which is meant to serve his core focus, the rest of his kit should therefore be reliable and not require high executional skill because you've already executed on his core focus on positional mastery. Imagine if you're in the top 0.1% of players and you somehow manage to get a target isolated. Imagine if you also had to land a Scar that was a skill shot projectile, his Obliterates that you had to manually shoot out, and his ultimate was also, like, imagine if you had to land 5 skill shots as well on top of getting somebody isolated. Nobody would play him. It'd be too hard, and he would be broken. So you kind of get, I hope that kind of gets the point across. Essentially, if you get caught by a Revenant and are isolated, he's already won because that's his thing. You've already made the mistake and he isolates you. Now, another example like that will more kind of prove prove the point, is Aurora ulting you in the middle of a creep wave. Now, her positional mastery requires this scenario. She is all about positional mastery. She excels in being in the right place at the right time. Since you are in the worst possible scenario when you're up against being in the middle of a creep wave against a Aurora, she should be successful. Since this mastery has already been executed, therefore requiring little executional mastery in line with her skill cap and difficulty. The whole point of Aurora is to be an anti-team fight and an anti-unit hero. If you have made the mistake of being in a big group of minions, you have already lost. All what Aurora has to do is play her paper to your rock, and she wins. And that's kind of the transactional nature of MOBAs. There are counters, right? And there are anti-counters. And that's kind of how these things work. Aurora is the rock to a team fight's scissors, right? There is that sort of thing. Whereas say a Decker with a purity sensor is the paper to Aurora's rock. There is that transactional nature that is really kind of hard to explain to new players. I'm just starting to really understand that and grasp that, and that's really really something that takes a while to learn. So hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this kind of enlightens some of you to the kind of process behind designing and the philosophy behind MOBA heroes kits and their abilities. Please, ladies and gentlemen, like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, and of course, guys, subscribe. If you guys like this content, found it useful, please subscribe so I can do it for you in the future. Till next time, like always, stay optimistic and positive.